Good morning. How often has not getting what you wanted actually been a blessing in disguise? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this morning in my moment of reflection. My name is Mandy Cran, and I've been doing these moments of reflection for about 5 years. And what I really want you to do is take a little step back from your busy lives, take a moment out and look at a quote or photograph and just give you a little bit of sort of seeing life differently. That's really what this is all about. So please like and share as we go through. I mean, especially if there's something that I say that you think will help somebody that you know, then please do forward it on to them, because this is really all about helping all of us have those really busy lives. So the quote for this week is, "Sometimes not getting what you want can be the most marvellous stroke of luck." And I'm sure that's happened to you, that quite often something hasn't turned out right, and then years or months or whatever later you suddenly think 19th century, so it really is absolutely in the blood. But as a child, all I wanted to do was to be a naval officer and go to sea. I'd been sailing since I was very small. We lived on a small island, and so the sea was in my blood. But all those years ago, the Navy wouldn't let women go to sea. So I had a choice. I either would join the Navy but didn't go to sea, and I'm afraid I'm not the sort of person that actually would have done very well shuffling papers behind a desk and wearing a skirt. For those of you that know me, it would have absolutely killed me. So I decided not to join the Navy, but I was absolutely gutted because that's all I'd ever wanted to do, and I couldn't believe that it's only because of my sex it meant I couldn't actually do something. But looking back and in the long run, two things happened. The first one was I did an awful lot of sailing, and I absolutely adore sailing. I've sailed lots of places around the world and had a huge amount more responsibility in being in charge of a yacht, a large yacht, than I would ever have done in the Navy. I'd never commanded a ship, and that's probably guaranteed. And so I've had a lot more responsibility in some really quite dangerous situations with offshore sailing that I would never have got in the Navy. But also I ended up in the Army, and actually the Army suited me much, much, much better. It was much more outdoors, it was much more physical, hands-on, lots of exercise, lots of getting into mud and pulling tanks out of ditches and fixing dirty engines, all that sort of stuff. And if I'd been in the Navy as deck officer, then I wouldn't be doing any of that sort of stuff. So actually I ended up in the right place. So I'm actually very grateful now that I didn't end up in the Navy. But the other thing that happened to me, which I'm incredibly grateful for, was actually the first Iraq War. At the time I was serving in a large workshop in Germany. I was responsible for about 35 soldiers, and I was away on a promotion course, about a 9-month promotion course, when the unit was called up to go to Iraq. Now, a lot of people on my course were taken back to their units, but not everybody, and I was one of the few that was left, and my OC refused to bring me back. And as you can imagine, I was absolutely gutted. Not only was it my team that were going without me, and I had trained them, but that's what you train for all your career. And so to not actually be able then to put all that training into practice in a wartime scenario was devastating for me. And I'm very conscientious and hardworking, as you know, and it took me a long time to bounce back from that. Now, I felt that for quite a few years, but when I look back at it now, I'm actually incredibly grateful I didn't go, for two reasons. One was the amount of inoculations that everybody was given, and they were given them all on the same day. There wasn't a question of waiting between each one, and all these inoculations mixed together in the system to create some really quite nasty side effects. And also the whole PTSD. And there's thousands and thousands of people out there who not only are they still struggling with PTSD, but their families and their loved ones are too. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. Whereas when I look back, I think at least, I have my health, but the odd aching joint, but generally I'm very, very healthy, and my family have not had to suffer with any of the side effects of going to the Iraq War. Did I lose some self-respect and some credibility by not going? Well, yes, absolutely. But in the long run, actually, my health, my family's health is much, much more important to me. So actually now I'm very grateful that I didn't go. But there is another side to this. And the other side to this is to be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. Now, my mother always used to say to me this as a child, say, I want to do this, I want to do that. And say, well, be very careful what you wish for, because you might get it. And I want to illustrate this with a story. It's a true story that somebody told me, at least they say it was true, so I'm not sure. But there was a lady who was desperate for a new car, and she knew exactly the car that she wanted. She knew exactly what colour the seats were going to be, what the dashboard was going to be made of, the make of it, the type of wheels, the colour and trim and all of that. Now, she was quite wealthy, or the husband was quite wealthy, she didn't work. And they lived in this nice house, nice part of town, and really they could have pretty much whatever they wanted. And she dreamed about having this car, perhaps for her birthday or something like that, and she'd imagined it down to the last detail. She imagined it sitting on her drive, gleaming pristine. Anyway, life changes and life happens, and 6 months later she found herself separated from her husband, moved out of the house and was living in some very grotty digs in another part of town. And she happened to drive past the house one day, and sitting on the drive was exactly the car that she had wanted. So if you want something, be very careful to make sure that you know exactly what you're asking for, because if you don't ask for all the right things and you get that a bit wrong, then that's what could happen. Now, it might not be a true story, but it gives a very good illustration of having very careful about what you ask for. So I hope you found that of interest and found it useful. If we haven't met yet, my name's Mandy Cran. People come to me when they realise that they need to make changes in their life if they want to have better health and quality family time in the years ahead. If that's you, then please go and visit my website, www.thebuzzgroupbemore.co.uk, and you can connect with me from there. I hope you enjoyed my moment of reflection for the week this week. Next week I'm going to be talking about guilt. And if you're a mother like me, then I'm sure you'll understand what I mean by double and triple guilt. And that's what I'm going to be talking about next week. So do join me 10 o'clock live next Friday here on Facebook on the Buzz Group Be More page. I look forward to seeing you then. Have a fabulous week.